Welcome everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to our weekly Soul Changes Lives webinar, and soul does change lives, you guys. It is amazing. We are so happy to be with you this week, and we are going to be talking about a wonderful product. We're going to have part 2 discussion of our favorite probiotic called ProBioIQ. But first, the way we always do, we want to start with a testimonial. So I'm going to quickly share my screen with you and go ahead and play that testimonial for you, okay?
The beautiful thing about soul is its unique ability to help heal both the mind and the body. It treats the body as a whole. And I know for me, dealing with very deep-seated emotional issues and grief, I realized that those emotional issues were affecting my organs. At one point, I was having kidney pain. I was having lung and respiratory issues. I was having issues with my skin, my largest organ, where my psoriasis would flare up, and I hadn't seen flare-ups in my skin in years, many years. But when I started a soul program, I was able to heal really from the inside out, emotionally and physically. Once I was able to deal with those emotional issues from the products that I was taking through soul, all of a sudden my physical issues with my organs began to heal up to the point where I have no more kidney pain. I no longer deal with respiratory trouble. My psoriasis is gone and hasn't showed its face in quite a couple years. So being on a soul program has benefited me tremendously. It's even benefited my son, who also deals with some intrusive thinking, intrusive thoughts. He no longer deals with those intrusive thoughts. So as a family, we have benefited tremendously from soul and being on a consistent program with soul, because it again heals the body as a whole, not separate or dealing with symptoms, but as a whole. It's a mind and body connection.
In 2010, I was diagnosed.
Isn't that an amazing testimonial, how soul can just take over your problems that you're facing and help you in a way that you didn't think was possible? And I love that testimonial, and I'm so grateful that I was able to share that with you today. So I hope that you'll listen to that again when I send this recording out. All right, so our second part of our webinar today is a product section that I always adore, having my big brother, my big younger brother. He's taller than me, but he's younger than me. And he is a dear friend, and he is the president of Soul Naturals, and he is one of the founders of Soul Naturals, Mr. Greg Halliday. And as I said, I had asked Greg to do a 2-part discussion on this beautiful product called ProBioIQ. This probiotic, which is so amazing, has 6 different strains of probiotics, billions and billions of colonizing units that will go into your body and help heal your gut so that your brain can function better. But they didn't stop there. Greg's going to tell us a little bit of the secret sauce in ProBioIQ. And the secret sauce is pretty darned amazing, because a lot of people like to, do any probiotic. And most people, unfortunately, today think that they'll buy some yogurt at the store and they're getting a great probiotic. All they're getting is sugar, feeding all the bad bacteria that lives in the intestine, right? And they're not really getting the benefits of a good probiotic. But the great minds at Soul Naturals did something extra. So when this product first came out, it was 5 strains of probiotic that were in here. One was recently added, I think it was about 2.5 years ago is when the PF was added to ProBioIQ. But what makes ProBioIQ so amazing and so interesting is that IQ part, right? what is it that Greg and his team has added to ProBioIQ to help the brain and help us get some really great benefits. So I'm going to turn the time over to Greg. He's going to spill the beans on what the secret sauce is, because there's one particular ingredient that is amazing. And it is also occurring in another product that we have at Soul Natural. So Greg, thank you so much for being with us today. Tell us, spill the beans. Tell me about the secret sauce in ProBioIQ. And I think I've made you a co-host, right?
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. And hello, everybody. I just want to say thanks for the testimonial too. I love that she talked about emotional and physical. I think the first thing we hear at Soul when people, I guess, get connected with the Soul family is sometimes when people are new, it's kind of this, I don't know if it's disbelief or they're just not used to that the emotional and cognitive part of our health heals right there with it, and that we have to nourish both. And so there's a little bit of like, is that really true? And then once they get past that, it's, well, which one heals first? Does the emotional part heal? And you know what? It's different. Meaning that a lot of times people can start on a program and think of some physical imbalances that they're saying. And the first thing they notice changing is their emotions before they're so, and other times it's the opposite. They'll notice some physical things and then they're actually able to start processing emotions. So I don't know the answer. Probably Debbie, Hugh, some of you here, Anita, could probably shed some light on that. But what Soul's committed to do is to provide both. Always provide complete formulas that will nourish both in particular ways. And we know they have different goals, each product, but taken together in a program, that's what we're committed to, is to keep bringing these tools. And hopefully we can fill the gaps that are in our society today, nutritionally, and et cetera. But as we were meeting this morning, I have to tell you one more quick thing, and then I'll jump to the slides. The husband of one of our wonderful leaders here in Salt Lake, her name is Marcella Endrick, and her husband is Emiliano. Debbie knows him. He was in this morning, and he was telling us about a story just 2 weeks ago. He showed me the text that he said, my wife, and he was just sort of praising all the wonderful things Marcella's doing. She's incredible. Like you, she sits down with people and she help them figure out programs to provide solutions for their health. And there was a woman who brought her 8-year-old autistic, I think it's a son. I just saw the text. And long story short, through all the different health issues that have gone with this, 2 different doctors were working with him, and one of them made a mistake to the degree that this little 8-year-old was going to have to go on dialysis. And they had him or her scheduled for dialysis. I think it was a boy. I think he's a boy. And it was Marcella who noticed in them coming and talking to her, she noticed some things they were doing. She said, this isn't right. This is really hard on kidneys. I wonder. Anyway, long story short, she's helped them nutritionally. And just, I want to say 3 weeks after beginning to help this little boy, kidney performance had moved from 40 to 53%. And so the doctor was just going, hey, we're not going to have to do dialysis. We're seeing change and improvement. And that's one issue. We know there's a lot more going on there, right? But this is one issue. And I'm so grateful that this child has someone in his life to help him. And hopefully he'll learn from his mother and from Marcel and others how to care for himself. Because that's our goal, right? To share everything that we know with others. And hopefully together we can all help each other. So ProBio, we talked about the first half of this last time. And I just want to show you a couple of slides that are the end of that training that Dr. Allison gave us, and then jump to what Debbie's calling the secret sauce. Because there are these strains of probiotic, and I just realized last time we talked, I actually did not show you all of the slides. I thought we were at the end, so I'm going to jump back because we talked about this PF, okay? And we ended with this one right here, that it actually creates electricity, okay, energy, this probiotic strain. These are the 5 slides I forgot to show you. Not only, so this kind of segues from all the different strains and why we have so many other ones, why we have 6, because each of them plays an important role, right? But look what this PF also does. It actually produces CLA. And I show this because people don't realize how much nutrition probiotics play a role in, besides just balancing things, you know. Look, so you can look at that, okay? And then here's the next one. It showed that in some studies that it actually stimulates other bacteria that are friendly to us to grow and regulates colonization. So what regulates means, I don't know, but I think that means it helps us have balance in there with our microbiome. So it's a really key strain. And then here's another study. They're not just antimicrobial to pathogenic bacteria and fungi, but they actually produce an anti-adhesive, so they can't adhere to the intestinal mucus. So they end up getting sloughed off. So that's another thing that it does. And one example was H. pylori. They did a study showing that H. pylori couldn't stick when you had PF in there. Okay, so, and here's the last one. It actually can bind to certain mycotoxins and neutralize or remove them. So it is quite a super strain, isn't it? And then, oh, I'm sorry, I thought that was the last one. This is the last one. Heavy metals. How many times have you looked for things that remove heavy metals from the body? Did you know that PF binds to them too? So again, if we have enough water in our diet and enough fiber as well, so that our trains will move out of the station, PF can help us. So this, when Debbie calls ProBioIQ this really, you know, queen product, it really is, it's so core. And these are the reasons, because of these particular strains that are in them. Oh, you know, there's a couple of those, the last couple, I keep thinking it's over, but last couple of studies, but I already mentioned what they talk about. So now I'm going to jump to the rest of the formula. The rest of the formula are 2 adaptogenic herbs. One is absolutely universally viewed as an adaptogen, red reishi mushroom. The other one probably is an adaptogen, though it's not on everyone's list. We tend to feel that it is because of its many benefits. And I'm going to share the other one with you. The reason for that is because red reishi, I've got 3 slides on it, and we talk more about it. And it's also in other sold products. It's in the NeuroIM in a really nice quantity. And so we can talk when Debbie wants to talk NeuroIM, we can talk more in depth. But it's basically the red variety of the reishi is, most people would agree, by far the most cognitive nutritional. So they're all really good for you, but red reishi seems to in particular help the brain in every way. So one study talked about depression, fatigue and well-being. And I think the fatigue was partly physical, but also emotional fatigue, just being tired mentally. The two are connected anyway, right? And this is a little quick snapshot of some other studies. Each bullet point is the summary of a study that Dr. Allison Caldwell Andrews highlights in her book, 10 Medicinal Mushrooms. If you have not gotten that book, it is such an enjoyable read because it's packed with information, but it's entertaining and it's short and packed. I mean, that's a great combination. So if you haven't got it, talk to Debbie. She'll show you where you can get one. But look at these summaries, okay? So each one of these were summaries of studies. So one of them was preventing the destruction of neurotransmitters. So protecting those. Another one is anti-inflammation. Another one, red reishi, is also antibacterial, antiviral. Another one is how key it is in protecting the liver. Another one, restoring the mucus balance in our digestion. So healing gastric ulcers and bringing prostaglandin to normal levels. And the last study was women with fibromyalgia showing marked improvement when they began to eat these mushrooms. So red reishi does a lot of different things. This is just an example of the variety of benefits it gives. The herb that we want to talk more about today is this one, because this is from Ayurveda. It has been used for thousands of years. It is often quoted in recent years because we've been doing more studies on the brain, and this particular herb is an excellent brain tonic. And I'll explain what they mean when they say brain tonic. There are studies. One study is free memory recall, which is just simply, reading or seeing or hearing something, and then later on, some period of time later, being asked to recall as much as you can from that without any kind of clues or cues. And another study is on protecting us from cognitive decline. These were both studies that came out the year we launched ProBioIQ. This was the year we launched. There have been many more. This is just a training that she gave us. So I want to add this one last thing before we go into more detail on this Bacopa. This entire formula works as well as it does because of this final component to the calming herbal blend. A small amount, quite a very small amount of konjac and xanthan fiber, because these two fibers are more acid resistant, though they are soluble. So they'll digest, but they'll digest in double or 2.5 times the normal amount of time, which means that as they bind with these probiotic strains and these therapeutic adaptogenic herbs, that they can have much greater opportunity for them to pass beyond the stomach into the small intestine. And so probiotics, particularly good for that. And these particular therapeutic mushroom blend, the reishi along with the Bacopa. We believe that one of the reasons you see a difference with ProBio, is the fact that we did prepare it with this blend instead of coating the capsule, which is another technique we used for years in another company. You harden the capsule and you coat it, and it takes longer to open up, but it becomes more brittle. This way, the soluble fiber binds, and you have none of that. The digestive process is the same for the capsule, but you have these acid-resistant fiber capsules of the probiotic strains in the herbs that can pass into the small intestine. That is another one of the, if Debbie's referring to that as the secret sauce, that's another very key part to the secret sauce, okay? So I wanted to mention that, but we wanted to spend a little bit of time today on the Bacopa Monnieri, because I know it's fairly well known, but I don't know if most of us kind of in the front of our brains have all of the amazing therapeutic actions that this plant brings to the table. I don't know if we have that in front of our mind, and so that's why I want to share that today. So hopefully we can have that as part of our knowledge base that we share with others. This was a particular training from Dr. Allison, again prepared by Dr. Allison Caldwell-Andrews. She called it Bacopa Monnieri and Probiotics Cognition Impact. The whole presentation was on how these change our brain. I love this, and I could probably, if Debbie wants, I could get her the link. Then she could have it and share it if you want this. So Dr. Allison says, okay, what is cognition? Gaining knowledge, understanding, memory, comprehension, all of that. Certain strains of probiotics improve cognition. Bacopa Monnieri improves cognition. The two of the strains we have in ProBioIQ are very famous for this, the Helveticus and the Bifidophilus longo. The Bacopa Monnieri is the herb she highlighted. So really quickly, she went through Bifidophilus. We're not going to go through a ton of detail on this because I'll get you the link, okay? Because we talked about the strains last week. But there are lots of studies that show how Bifidophilus changes very important things that will not change. For instance, certain carbohydrates will not ferment without it, and therefore cannot be digested. So I really apologize. I know that it's bad form for me to skip through slides when you can see them, but let me just tell you, in every case, what you see here in performance and balance was improved just because of this strain. Helveticus, same thing. Alzheimer's studies, memory studies, whatever type of cognitive impairment was studied, they're able to show improvement, anxiety's down, inflammation's down, etc. So cognitive dysfunction improves. So Helveticus is a great team with Bifidophilis. And these are just some of the studies that Dr. Allison cited. She actually cited some where they did it together. So listen, look at that second point. I'm so sorry for jumping through these so fast, but look at that second point on this one. Certain parts of the brain where emotions are processed, it reduced cell death there. So this is another example of strengthening our adaptivity, our emotional response, our cognitive response, versus trying to push it and treat it as we do as a society with synthetic and chemical components. So here, now we get to Bacopa. Sometimes people call it Brahmi. It is a brain tonic. It appears to be an adaptogen. There are writings back at 500 AD about anxiety, memory, epilepsy, and cognition, that it aids in all of those areas. And you can go clear back to 5000 BC, and you have ancient scholars who ate this plant so that they can memorize very lengthy hymns and scriptures. Interesting, huh? It is found in Nepal, Sri Lanka, China, Taiwan, Vietnam, and over here in this continent, Florida, Hawaii, and some other southern, eastern states of the United States. When people include Bacopa in their nutrition, they generally notice less anxiety, more able to relax, less depressive feelings. And so that site is where it got a lot of its fame, but it also is a lung tonic. It actually will activate. It's bronchodilatory to the lungs. It actually has immune system benefits that are adaptogenic. Whenever you see modulate, that's adaptogenic, right? That means that if it's overactive or autoimmune, that it is a normalizer to that situation. So it does have quite an array of benefits, but most of the focus is on the brain. And what the scientists feel, they don't understand all of it. We're all still learning on this, but what they feel is that Bacopa is changing that gap, the synapse between neurons, that we actually can improve through cognitive training, which is interesting. We can strengthen, in other words, cell communication through exercising the right kind of cognitive training. Nutrition, though, clearly this study showed in 2016, makes a difference, in particular Bacopa monnieri. It has some substances they call bacosides. And what they've shown is these bacosides improve the impulses, the transmission of our nerve impulses. They also regenerate synapses. They also aid as the body repairs damaged neurons. So what does that mean, Dr. Allison says? It means it makes it easier to learn and easier to remember new information. Now, in addition, it also increases brain serotonin. That's another study in 2016. So think about that. When we're in a calm state, we function, our brain is much more alive and active and alert, et cetera, et cetera. We tend to be, sometimes people think it's the opposite, that you get stimulants to make your brain more alert. But then we're not able to maintain focus for periods of time needed for deep thought. And there can be some philosophical discussion and dispute on that fact. We hold in Soul philosophically that if the body can resist anxiety or any kind of feeling of nervousness and anxiety and anxiousness through adaptogenic herbs, all of our cognitive functions happen better, more rapidly, and more successfully. So Bacopa does help with that. Here's something I love to show. So when science and Western medicine tries to deal with what we just talked about back here, like damaged neurons and impulses that aren't proper, and any kind of disconnect or interruption in the flow of energy in the nervous system, we use chemicals, and sometimes those can temporarily bridge. However, over time they damage. And that's what this quote is from this study in 2013. Unlike the potentially addictive and forceful action of widely used psychostimulants, chronic and moderate administration of Bacopa monnieri, BM, appears to nourish rather than deplete neurons. I wish that principle could be shared in every option for, as we heard earlier today, balancing our organs, lungs, heart, liver, spleen, pancreas. We use so many things to try to help, and they might serve a certain bridge, and over time they tend to be damaging. But adaptogens and the proper herbal nutrition actually nourish, and they're a tonic. And that's why Bacopa is recognized as a brain tonic. So this gives some example of why they feel it has this wonderful memory enhancing action. But the only thing that I want to share on this slide is when you see a plant is recommended for long-term therapy, that tells you everything you need to know about that plant. That's the quality of an adaptogen, safe for daily use, and you don't need high doses of it. If you're going to use it every day, you can use a low dose amount over time and see all sorts of changes. So here are a couple of studies. This was a study of 60 medical students right around the age of 20, and they took Bacopa monnieri twice a day. They took like a third of a capsule, of a typical capsule, and they did baseline memory tests. What did they find? Their attention, their ability to maintain attention improved, freedom from distractibility, working memory was better, immediate recall was better, and here's one that might surprise all of us a little bit: language comprehension. So, I mean, I think about, especially a university setting, you get professors from all walks of life and from all parts of the world, and you get different accents and nationalities and cultures, and that's what makes it so amazing. But language comprehension, whether we're learning a language or interpreting or understanding speech, that's something that Bacopa monnieri improved. So they did another, and I guess a meta-analysis is really simply where they cross-study multiple previous studies, right, and look for patterns and themes. And this is what they found back in 2016 with children. Same thing. Frequent recall is better memory, visual memory, hearing, auditory memory. So it doesn't matter whether they're reading it, hearing it, associative memory, it all improved with Bacopa monnieri. And their vocabulary did, their verbal comprehension, their spelling and phonetic coding, all of these things improved in children. So that should answer the question, should children be taking Bacopa monnieri? Well, yes, they should. We particularly focus in Soul so that all of our formulas can be used by all ages. That's why we base everything on adaptogenic herbs, safe for daily use, and some complementary other herbs that go with them that are very safe. They also noticed in this meta-analysis that ADHD clinical reports showed improved attention, cognition, intelligence, and behavior. Significant improvements in hyperactivity and attention. Again, that's why this is just a personal belief. I think that Bacopa, because of what it does, dually strengthening nerve communication, but also in the brain, providing relaxation, that combination is just golden. That's the combination we seek for our children and really for ourselves, right? They also, of course, did studies at advanced ages, and they found all these wonderful benefits. Beta amyloids, we hear a lot about that with Alzheimer's. There are several herbs that Soul includes in formulas that decrease those. And Bacopa monnieri is another one of them. So yes, there are quite a few benefits there. Here's another quote, 2013, same source. It demonstrates immense potential in the amelioration of cognitive disorders. So the science is really in love with the potential. Now, let's just think for a minute how many millennia they've been using this in India and China and other parts of the world. They're not excited about the potential. They know it. Although I think with all our progress, more and more people are forgetting. This information gets forgotten as we turn to what Dr. Allison shows here is the magic bullet, which is, you just pick one thing to solve one thing. And we heard that in the testimonial this morning. That's not the way we believe in doing it at Soul. We believe in treating the body as a whole, programs and education, and we all keep learning. So Bacopa Monnieri, it's one that we loved and we knew we wanted it in the formula from the moment we founded the company. But I for one, when Dr. Allison presented this, I learned quite a few things. Bacopa Monnieri is quite an amazing herb. I know why it's so famous in Ayurveda now.
And now you know why it makes you smarter. It increases your IQ because it helps you actually with your recall and learning new skills. One of the things that we've talked about in past classes is how to keep the brain young. And one of the things that they tell you after the age of 50 to increase brain capacity is to learn a new language. Now, learning a new language after 50 years old is very different than learning a second language when you're 5, right? And so I've noticed that I have been studying Italian. I use Duolingo. I'm not using anything fancy or anything like that. When I have more time, I think I might invest in Babbel or Rosetta and do a real course. But I have been able to, like walk away from my Italian for a while and then go back and score a perfect score on my exercises. And I think like my friend Rachel Bragg, I think using Soul's products, especially the ones that contain the mushrooms and things like the Bacopa Monnieri, really have made me smarter. So for what it's worth, I love it. And so Greg actually spilled the secret sauce. Now you know what makes ProBioIQ such an amazing product. It's more than a probiotic. It is, if we could teach everyone in the United States and in children when they're in school, how important using a good quality probiotic is and what a probiotic can actually do to help strengthen the brain-gut connection, we'd be a better country, right? But if we could teach more people about the importance of some of these other adaptogenic herbs, like Bacopa Monnieri, I know is not classified as an adaptogen, but it really does act like one. The fact that you have an addition to your probiotic that helps moderate the colonization of bacteria in your gut. You also have an ingredient that will also help heal the connection between the neurons. When you have neurological disorders, it's because the neuron connection just kind of widens, right? There's a big gap. The way that the nervous cells communicate is hormones are emitted through an electric pulse. That's why PF is so amazing and increases the electricity in your body, because that electrical impulse that triggers the neurons to function, to communicate, PF facilitates that. So now you're looking at all of these things. But, when science used to tell us that you couldn't grow new brain cells, that you were born with the amount that you had. We know now that is not correct. What we know through studying adaptogens and studying herbs like the ones that Soul uses is that not only can we heal, but we can also improve the way they work, or improve or tighten that gap between those nerve cells so that when the impulse or the message is sent across, it's actually received. And so this is a game changer for all types of neurological dysfunction. And so I know that there was a question on the chat, can children use this product? Yes, that's what makes adaptogens safe for daily use and long-term. You don't need a high quantity, but if you have little children, if you have infants, I always recommend open a capsule, put it over the umbilical cord, over the belly button, and then just cover it, do it at nighttime because that's when the body really does its thing. And so if you do that at night, your children can get the benefits of probiotic, which is important because children suffer from diarrhea and gastrointestinal distress sometimes when they're little, depending on the formula or, things that are going on in their environment. But for children that are older, you can still take a toddler at nighttime when they're asleep and do the same process. You can do that, or you can actually hide it in their food. What I love about Soul Naturals ProBio is you have the acid resistant quality and the heat resistant quality, right? So you have the probiotics the 2 strains that are heat resistant, which means that I can keep it here on my desk and see it every day, and it doesn't need to be refrigerated. But if I buy more than 1 bottle a month, I would obviously keep one on my desk because I know it will be safe to use, and the other I can store in my fridge just for better keep. So I like to mention that and make sure that everybody knows they don't need to be refrigerated, but if you're buying them in bulk, then refrigerate the bottles that you're not using. If you sell them, like if you have a store, then obviously keep them refrigerated, and then bring them out as you need them. But they're so easy to use. And Greg, I'm just so grateful for everything that you said. I don't like to talk about diseases or dysfunction. I talk about dysfunction in the body. And when you look at a probiotic like ProBioIQ, you see that it is just as complex and complete as Avant Green was when we talked about Avant Greens. And so just think of all of the added benefits that you get from taking a variety of Soul natural products and how you can actually heal your gut and heal the brain and help things function better. And if you want to learn a new language, take your ProBioIQ or take your NeuroIM, because you're going to get your red reishi in there, and take your ProBio so that you get your Bacopa Monieri and you can actually learn the language better. So anyway.
Deb, before I leave, speaking of the brain.
Oh, yes, make your announcement.
Yeah, and it's back in today. It's finally, we apologize. You know that I can just tell you, if we dealt in animal gelatin, we never would have been out, but we have really strong feelings about working in vegetable form. And so we're happy to announce, there you go. And what another great brain food, but that's for another time.
Awesome. Awesome. Yes. We have plenty of discussions that we have a small line of product in comparison to other companies, but there's so much to learn about each product. We could talk about each product for 3 years in a row and learn something different every time we study it. So thanks again, Greg, for being with us this week. We look forward to next month's discussions. And I thank you for being with us as always every week. I'm going to close the show this week with my natural solution to whatever ails you. And today, the American Heart Association came out with a statistic that I thought, well, duh, we've all known that for a long time, but it took them quite a while to figure it out. Today, they were talking about the importance of sleep and how many hours of sleep a body really needs. And so I just wanted to tell you really quickly that I know there are people that function on less sleep. That doesn't mean that their bodies are doing well. Maybe they can function for a little while. We all know the millennials who think that they can be workaholics and work forever at that pace, but then they get to be my age and they don't remember really where they put their glasses or their keys. I misplace them and I find them. Jerry always helps me find them. But let me just give you some numbers. So infants from 0 days old, from newborn to 5 years old need a minimum of 15 to 16 hours of sleep a day. 15 to 16 hours of sleep per day if you are 5 years old or less. If you are 5 years old to 8, science is now telling us that 10 to 12 hours of sleep is incredibly important. So when your children are in school, they really need to sleep. And if you let them sleep longer on the weekend, that's up to you, right? Because my mom used to say, hello, the sun's been out for a while. There's chores that need to be done. They're not going to do themselves. But she always got us to sleep early the night before. So she was always very well aware that we'd had at least 10 hours of sleep before she was waking us and getting us to do our thing. If your child is between 8 and 18 years old, your child still needs 9 to 10 hours of sleep. Now, if you're a child like me of 18 or over, like all of us on this discussion today, then the minimum would be 7 to 9 hours of sleep, 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And how many of us really get 7 to 9 hours of sleep when it's not the weekend? I know for me, I get up early for church. I get up early because I got to walk my dogs, and then I'm up, and we got to do our thing. But it's really important to get to bed at a regular time every night. And if we can become used to a schedule, our bodies will really thank us, right? So one of the things that I do to get ready for bedtime, and I don't have my little envelope here, but one of the things that I do at bedtime is I take my ProBioIQ and I take my Vertizymes, right? And it helps me get to sleep because this really helps promote a better sleep quality. But I take a packet of Renew. See if I have one handy. A packet of Renew with a packet of Soul Royal. So I can take my probiotic, my Vertizyme, my Renew, and my Soul Royal, and take all of that about 8 o'clock. I'm very fortunate that my husband has to get up early in the morning. So because he has to get up really, really early to go to work, we go to bed really, really early. Usually by 9 o'clock, lights are out. By 9:30, somebody that I'm not going to point at is snoring. Well, he doesn't snore anymore because he actually uses Soul. So, but he's sound asleep, you know, by 9:30, and usually I'm comforting a little dog or, you know, putting somebody to sleep. And when I get up, when I actually get out of bed, I feel really relaxed. The other thing that you can do to facilitate your sleep, if you cannot get between 7 and 9 hours of sleep per night, and this is why it's important, you guys, there are lymph glands in our brain as well, and they produce something called glial. Our glial glands are back here. It's glymph. That Dr. Allison likes to call it glymph because it's lymphatic fluid from the glial glands. Those need to drain at night. And usually if they don't drain properly or completely, those are the mornings that you wake up and you're like, you feel like you have a hangover and you can't really be focused. It's because your glial glands were not draining. And that's why it's so important to sleep well at night. And so one of the things that you can try is try your Soul Renew hot like a tea. And you might like that. And if you add a little oat milk or a little almond milk, not all nut milks and, you know, are created equally, but find a good brand that you like, fix it like a tea in about 10 ounces of water and sip on it slowly between 7 and 8 o'clock at night, and make sure that you're, you know, turning off the lights and getting that melatonin naturally going in your body. So when your brain sees that it's dark outside and it's dark in your house, it says, hey, Debbie's ready for bed, or Jaleva's ready for bed. So I'm going to create the hormones that they need to make them fall asleep. And if that still sleep is still eluding you, remember the 4-7-8 deep breathing exercise that I mentioned in the notes when we talked about last time, when we talked about deep breathing. 4-7-8 is the one where you're going to breathe in through your nose for 4 counts. You hold it for 7 counts. And you exhale for 8. And you do that 4 times sitting at the edge of your bed in the dark, thinking of nothing else. And usually if you've taken your herbs and you do your 4-7-8 and then you lay down, you should have a good night's sleep. Okay. I love you guys. I thank you for being with me every week, and I will see you next time. Thanks for sharing Soul and for loving Soul as much as you do. I love you. Thank you.